Good evening guys, and welcome to today's video, which is going to be all about the subject of reincarnation. And I have to admit, this was actually a request by one of my lovely subscribers, Linda Kenwood. In case you didn't know, I am a strong believer of reincarnation, and I hope you enjoy this video. In technical terms, reincarnation refers to the belief that an aspect of every living being continues to exist after death. This aspect may be the soul or mind or consciousness, which is reborn in an interconnected cycle of existence. In simple terms, reincarnation is the belief that on the death of a body, the soul is reborn again into another body. The word reincarnation itself derives from Latin and literally means entering the flesh again. The origins of the notion of reincarnation are obscure, but many religions believe in reincarnation, such as Hinduism, Buddhism and Celtic pagans, which is where my religious beliefs are rooted from. Some people like myself are firm believers that we are indeed reincarnated in different bodies across multiple lifetimes, whereas there are others who think reincarnation is a load of baloney. To me, reincarnation is like being on a mission, and we all have goals that we want to achieve before we can reach enlightenment or pass over. If we fail at achieving a goal in one lifetime, what we learned in that lifetime will aid us to achieve it in the next. As mentioned before in my RMS Titanic ghost story, I strongly believe that I was on that ship when she sank. I first learnt about the Titanic when I was around 11 years old, after looking in a book which had a photo of her in it. I instantly felt a connection, almost like I had seen that ship before. But how? I did not know, as I had never encountered it before then. After that I went mad and learned as much about it as I could, so as to aid me into trying to find out why I felt the way that I did about that ship. And although I have no actual memories of being on the Titanic, I can say that I have what I feel are more psychological attributes. For example, I have a serious fear of water, and because of that fear, I've never been able to learn how to swim. So the way I see it, maybe my goal in this life is to get over my fear of water and to learn to swim. Who knows? But I do know this much. No matter how much I have tried to learn to swim, I just can't do it. However, I can safely say that I have indeed mastered the art of doggy paddling, so at least I'm a quarter of the way there. There have also been a few occasions when I have had icy cold water thrown over me, and it made me freak out. Literally, I went into panic mode. I couldn't breathe. I started hyperventilating. It really was not a nice experience. When my children were younger, and if we ever went to the seaside, I would just not let go of their hands, especially if we were close to the sea edge or walking along cliff edges. I mean, okay, fair enough, it's the correct parental thing to do anyway for safety reasons, but it was more than that. I was so scared that something would happen to them. On one occasion we went to the New Forest on a camping holiday with the ex's parents, and we visited Southampton. And whilst in Southampton, of course, we had to go and visit the docks. Now, I'd never been to Southampton ever, and certainly not to the docks. Yet when I got there, I knew I'd been there before. I remember just standing there looking out to sea with a feeling of excitement, but also sadness too. I believed that I was a man, and that I was either a crew member or someone of a lower class than those around me. And that's it. That's all I know. I could lie and make out this, that and the other, but it would be wrong of me to do so. and I don't do lying. Another life that I am meant to have lived is that of a berserker warrior, and it was a friend of mine that actually picked up on that. My friend is psychic, and this is when I used to go to pagan meetings and used to meet some weird and wonderful people there. I have to admit, my friend is still my friend and will always be a friend, but yeah, it was him that picked up on that. Now, I had no idea myself what Berserker Warriors was, so I had to do some research into finding out what he believed I had been. Basically, they were hardcore Norse warriors who entered a trance state before battle and seriously kicked the shit out of their enemies. Now, I know Vikings were not the most lenient, but Berserkers were on another level, and they went batshit crazy. Well, anyway, when I was younger, I was a bit of a nutcase, believe it or not, and I could stand my own corner in fights, and if by chance I was made to bleed, I went crazy, and I would literally lose it with the other person. It was almost like I just went into myself, and I didn't care what damage I did to the other person. My friends said that they could feel this imposing being within me that did not like being challenged. Shame my own interior warrior couldn't have assisted me in ripping my ex to pieces. Am I just a nut job for believing that I've lived different lives? Maybe, but I know I'm not alone. Although reincarnation has never been proven to be real, there are some scientists that believe that it is a feasible concept. Dr. Ian Stevenson dedicated the majority of his career into finding evidence of reincarnation until his death in 2007, and he claimed to have found 3,000 examples of reincarnation. In a study titled Birthmarks and Birth Defects Corresponding to Wounds on Deceased Persons, he used facial recognition to analyse similarities between the claimants and their alleged prior incarnation, while also studying birthmarks. He wrote in his study that 35% of children who claim to remember previous lives have birthmarks or birth defects that they attribute to wounds on a person whose life the child remembers. One case investigated by Stevenson was that of a boy from Turkey who remembered living the life of a man who was killed by a shotgun. After investigation, hospital records were found that told of a man who died after 6 days of injuries caused by a blast to the right side of the skull. The boy in question was born with a malformed right ear, and the right side of his face was underdeveloped. Another case investigated was that of 6-year-old Taranjit Singh, who lived in the village of Alumayana in India. Now, since the age of 2, he had claimed that his real name was Satnam Singh, and that he had been born in another village roughly 40 miles away from where he lived with his parents. He stated that he was a student aged around 15 years old and that his father was called Jeet Singh. He then claimed that he'd been killed on September 10th, 1992 after a man on a scooter collided with him on his bike. Taranjit was so insistent that his father decided to investigate, and he discovered that a boy called Satnam really did die in an accident and that the boy's father was called Jeet. Taranjit's father reached out to Satnam's family and he arranged for them to meet Taranjit, who was able to pick Satnam out from the photographs of him. Furthermore to Stevenson's investigations, in 2012 Jim Tucker and Jürgen Kiel submitted a paper that presented their study which detailed families with children who were born with marks corresponding to their dead relatives. In one case, a boy was noted to have a birthmark on his left arm, in the same place that his grandfather, who had died 11 months before he was born, had been marked. A case investigated by Jim Tucker concerns a young boy called Sam Taylor. When he was around a year old, he started to recall his past life. And when he was around a year and a half, he looked up at his father, who was changing his diaper at the time for him, and said, "When I was your age, I used to change your diapers." If that wouldn't freak you out, I don't know what would. One day Sam was looking through an old family album and was looking at the photos when he pointed at one of a car and said, "That's my car." His parents were surprised as the car had been his grandfather's first car, and his mom, being a non-believer She showed him a photo of his grandfather when he was a little boy with other children of around the same age. Sam pointed to his grandfather and said, "There I am." She corrected him and told him, "No, that's your grandfather," to which he replied, "No, that's me." Even after that, Sam's mother refused to believe that Sam was the reincarnation of his grandfather, and so she asked him if he remembered anything from his past life. Little Sam told her that someone had turned his sister into a fish, and when his mum asked him who, he told her the bad men. It turned out that Sam was talking about his grandfather's sister, who had been murdered and her body had been dumped in a lake. It was something that the family never spoke about. So how would young Sam have known about that tragic death in his family? From the age of 2, a child named Lee insisted that he had another house in Hollywood and that he also had another mummy. By the age of 3, he began saying that he was born on June the 26th, when his actual birthday was June the 21st. Lee also claimed that his middle name was Coe, that he wrote movies for a living, and that he had a daughter called Jennifer. He also appeared to have an interest in tractors, but at the same time, he appeared to be terrified of them. Not only that, he also hated anything being near the upper part of his body and would suffer terrible nightmares in which he would cry out that his arms were broken and that a kite somehow managed to pin his arms down. One day, out of curiosity, his sister asked him how old he was when he died, and Lee replied that he was 48. Lee's parents were very curious about his statements and relayed the titles of movies to him, and when they mentioned Gone with the Wind, he became very enthusiastic and claimed that he had wrote that film. After doing a Google search, Lee's parents learnt that Gone with the Wind had been written by Sidney Coe Howard, who was born on June 26, 1891. He had a daughter called Jennifer, and he died aged 48 years old. It turned out that just before Gone with the Wind was released in 1939, Howard was at his home on his Massachusetts farm when he went to take his tractor out of his garage to work on his property. Tragically, a hired hand had left the tractor in gear, and it lurched forward, pinning him to the foundation wall of the garage and crushed him to death. A very well-known case of reincarnation is linked to a young boy called James Leininger from Louisiana, who, when not even 2 years old, began to have terrible nightmares shortly after his father had taken him to visit a Dallas Flight Museum. His parents would find him often on his back, kicking his legs in the air and thrashing his arms as if he was trying to escape an invisible box. At the same time, he was also yelling out garbled words that they just could not understand. Well, I guess with the age he was, you know, he wouldn't have developed proper speech by then. However, by the time he'd reached the age of 3, his mother was able to make the words out. And they were: airplane crash, on fire, little man can't get out, help. His fascination in planes grew as he got older, and his parents were amazed at just how much he knew about planes. But their amazement soon turned to alarm when James started going into more details about his nightmares and talked about having a buddy called Jack Larson and of how he had flown a plane called Corsair from a boat called the Natoma, and then his plane was shot down by another plane that had a red sun on it. He also spoke of his memories of being a Lieutenant James Houston, and this eventually prompted his father Bruce to start researching to see if there was any truth into what his son claimed. During his research, Bruce discovered that there had been a small escort carrier called the Natoma Bay. He also thought there had been a pilot called Jack Larson that served that he was still alive. Bruce quickly contacted Jack, who informed him that the only pilot shot down from the crew of the Natoma Bay was James Houston. His plane had received a direct hit and crashed in a ball of fire on March 2nd, 1945. Discovering that Houston's plane had crashed exactly the way that his young son had described was enough proof for Bruce to believe that his son had indeed lived this previous life. Another case that is known of is that of a 10-year-old boy called Ryan from Oklahoma, who believes that he was a big shot Hollywood agent called Marty Martin, who lived a life of luxury, married 4 times, and had influential contacts. Ryan was about 5 years old when he started to exhibit strange behaviours, such as calling action for imaginary movies and waking at night screaming that he was in Hollywood when his heart exploded. Ryan's mum then started bringing home books from the library to see if they could trigger any more memories for him. And one day he pointed to a photo taken on a set of the 1932 movie Night After Night and said, "Mama, that's me. I found me." The man that he pointed to was Marty Martin, who had featured very briefly in that movie and then later on went on to become a very famous Hollywood agent. From that point, memories seemed to flood back to Ryan, and he would flip through books about older Hollywood and point out friends like Rita Hayworth. He recalls seeing Marilyn Monroe at a party one time, but got punched in the eye by a bodyguard before he could even get anywhere near close to her. He also stated he used to drive a Rolls Royce, had a daughter, and that he was homesick. Ryan also knew that he had died of cancer in 1963, and that the room he died in had numbers on the door. This turned out to be the case, as Marty had died in hospital, but not in 1963, but instead on Christmas Day 1964. And although he did indeed have cancer, it was a cerebral hemorrhage that killed him. With most cases of the children are claimed to be other people from previous lives, it is also known that as they get older, they tend to lose these memories, or maybe because their previous life has been acknowledged, they later rest in some way. But it's not just children who have claimed to have had previous lives. And one great and famous example of this is Sylvester Stallone. Now we all know who Sylvester Stallone is, don't we? And if you don't, then how? How? What? Anyway, he believes that he has lived at least 4 lives, and in one of them he experienced a horrific death when he lost his head in the French Revolution. When he was asked by an interviewer if it was awful to be guillotined, his response was, and I'm not going to do his accent or his voice, because no, it doesn't hurt and you don't feel anything except your head hits the basket, and that's it. Stallone also believes that he was a boxer in the 1930s and he was killed by a knockout punch. Maybe this has something to do with the success of one of his most famous films and one of his most iconic characters, Rocky Balboa. To conclude this video, and to maybe open your eyes up a little bit more to the belief of reincarnation, I have only this to say. If we look all around us, we see that everything is reincarnated. The cycle of birth and death exists everywhere in the realm of the universe. And one good example of that is nature. If a plant can die only to grow again after a while, then why can't we do the same too? As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions that you would like to ask me in regards to reincarnation, please feel free to do so by leaving your comments down below. If you're new to watching my videos and you'd like to see more of me, please remember to hit that subscribe button. And that's it for tonight, guys. I'll be back later on this week with another ghost story from around the world and other videos too. But until then, you sleep tight now.